Information to help you run your business better and improve your marketing campaigns. My name is Hank Hoffmeyer, and thank you for joining me on Hank's Marketing and Business Tips. Welcome to episode 288 of the HMBT podcast. I'm joined today by Mike Abramowitz. He's with Better Than Rich. He helps overwhelmed entrepreneurs implement simple systems to help them going from being business operators to business owners and truly experience the financial and time freedom that drew them to entrepreneurship in the first place. We've all been there, done that. Probably want to be an entrepreneur, but don't really realize what it takes, and it becomes a lot more work. Or maybe you know somebody who started a business and they realize how much work it is and they get stressed out. But Mike is here today to give us some insight around what we can do, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or you are an entrepreneur, or maybe you're a successful CEO, CMO somewhere. You probably get some little tidbits out of today's shows. Mike, thanks for joining me today, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Hank. I appreciate it. And I think time freedom is important for regardless whether you're a C-suite executive or you're the business owner, you're a small time entrepreneur. It doesn't matter. Let's help you get some time freedom from whatever it is that you're doing.
I remember before the pandemic, there was the whole hustle and grind mentality where you had to put in a lot of hours, a lot of effort to be successful, whether it was owning your own business, packing up things to ship out, or doing a service, or when you're working for a company, they always, say, hey, you're a 40 an hour employee, but we expect 80. And that was kind of the norm. And then the pandemic hit, and then we have these younger generations that really do value the work-life balance, or really living their life more than doing their job. And I think it's a great opportunity to really talk about how we can, number one, be successful in our career or job, whether we have, our own job, our own company, or we have a job that we work for another company, but yet be successful and then still be able to unwind, take vacations, read those books we want to do, maybe do some yoga, and not feel guilty about not putting time towards my work life. And maybe I could take some of that advice, because I should have worn my other hat. It's called workaholic, because I really love what I do. And I feel like I always have to be creating content. It doesn't feel like work for me, but maybe I do need to unwind a little bit. Let's unpack this. What do we need to do in your eyes?
Well, I came up with something called the Time Rich Six, and we could go in any direction here, but the Time Rich Six is boundaries, number one. Number two is communication guidelines. Number three, systems. Number four, playbooks. Number five, team. And number six, tech. And it's in that order for that reason, because number one, we need to know what our priorities are that we're creating boundaries around. And then number two, communication guidelines. How are people getting our attention, and how do we want people to get our attention? And then number three, the systems are the if-thens for each of the four pillars of our business: attract, convert, onboard, and retain, for talent and for clients. The playbooks are the predictable, SOPs or playbooks, plays, whatever we want to call them, standard operating procedures, resources, we could call them, that are provided to the team, the who's executing those plays: virtual assistants, staff, internal staff, contractors. And then the tools are the technology, or what are the tools that these individuals are using to create a fantastic user experience for the end user and also the person who's calling the plays. So Time Rich Six, it's a really simple framework and a simple way that I was able to go from 10 years ago being the absolute grinder that you described, where I was in the business nonstop, constantly writing my books, doing speaking engagements, being in direct sales, wearing every single hat of every single department, grinding, to last year in 2023, I had 9 full weeks off, all weekends off, every Monday off, every evening and morning off. And when I say off, it's just time that was dedicated, because those boundaries, to Saturdays were with my son, so my wife could have a personal day. Mondays dedicated to myself, so I could have a personal day. Sundays dedicated to the family. Mornings dedicated to working on myself. Evenings dedicated to being present with the family. And then in the middle, that's where I was present with those that were most important to me: the live conversations, strategic partnerships, sales conversations, revenue generating activities, strategy sessions, planning sessions, the things that help move the business forward, and making sure that I had a team that I was working through to execute those plays. But obviously the coach doesn't go into the game to run the plays. The coach is calling the plays and then working on figuring out what plays to create for the next opponent. So that's an overview. I'll kick it back to you, but We
All
can go in
right.
any direction you want.
That is a lot that we could go through. And number one, people are going to say that was just a high level overview. It's like going to a really cool session at a conference and you get all these takeaways, but you never do anything with them, right? So we need to give some tangible takeaways during the show. But I also want to say, I know my comment section is going to blow up, right? Because they're going to say something like, Mike, this is unrealistic. How can you not work on Mondays? Or how can you spend time on, Sundays? I'm a small business owner and I always have to be in the job and always doing the work and prepping for the next week because I don't have employees, I don't have virtual assistants and all that. And people will think it's unrealistic. And to be honest with you, you're about the third person in the last, I want to say 3 or 4 months I've met that does certain things like that. One gentleman I met, he's a leadership coach, and he said he doesn't start work until 9 or 10 in the morning because he spends time with his family and his wife in the morning, being in the moment before he gets started. He exercises and then he's done at 3 o'clock on Friday. And he said that he has more customers than he needs right now. He doesn't even need to take on more customers. But I guess the problem is like how do people get to that point? Let's just say I just started a business and I love last week we were talking about account-based marketing and I don't know why, but we chose the topic of somebody who a chocolate maker, a chocolate company, right? And it was real hard to discuss that. But let's talk about that. Let's say I make chocolate bars at home and I want to, start selling them online and at the local farmers market because maybe I'm using some local ingredients or something. And I feel like I'm working 80, 90, 120 hours a week. How do I get to the point to where I can start setting up myself for success to be able to take that time that I need with my family because I need to make that living because I'm supporting my family. Hopefully that was a good
It's great.
example.
It's great. Two things that immediately show up. Number one is the business is a vehicle for your life. So that's very important for you to understand. The business is not your life, it's a vehicle for your life. So we need to keep in mind what we're running the business for. Number two is we have to understand what season we're in. So there's winter season where when you're weathering the storm, there's the season of unpredictability where you're just waiting for the circumstances to pass by. Spring always follows winter where you start planting those seeds. You want to make sure you're intentional with what seeds you're planting. If you want apples during harvest, you got to plant apple seeds. If you want oranges, you got to plant orange seeds. So be very intentional during spring. What do I mean by that? If you're a business owner and you're planting seeds of starting a business or launching a business or launching a product that in the fall season requires a lot of your attention, well, that's probably where you need to reevaluate what type of seeds you want to plant. Summer is the season of grind. So if someone's grinding 100 hours a week, it's just a summer season. It's necessary. You got to work. You only get one chance to really raise those seeds in a healthy environment. And then fall is where you reap the rewards from the seeds you planted. Too often, business owners get stuck in the summer season of grind and they don't get a chance they choose not to get out of grind season to go into the fall where they reap the rewards, where they take a step back, enjoy the fruits they bared, reevaluate and start either preparation for winter or reevaluating what are the next type of seeds that they want to plant for the next spring. So it's important to keep in mind what season they're in. That's like just, again, one of those overviews, but let's get into practical and tactical, Hank, because that's really what your listener wants. Number one is you need to know what your time is worth. So I would do a time audit. So let's say this chocolate bar maker wants to make $150,000 for the year, let's say. Let's say they want to work 40 hours a week and they want to take 4 weeks off. So they want to work 48 weeks a year. So we do 40 hours a week times 48 weeks. That's 1,920 hours. Okay. And let's say this person wants to make $150,000 in exchange for 1,920 hours. That is $78 per hour for this person. So now we know what their time is worth. If I know my time is worth $78 per hour, I need to make sure that the tasks and activities that I'm doing are going to be $78 or higher. So anything that's below $78, I want to offload and delegate. So that way I could spend my time on high value activities and buy back my time from the lower value tasks. A lower value task might be setting up a booth. I could pay someone $15 an hour to set up the booth, but maybe someone who's running the booth to sell the chocolate bars, maybe they're worth $50 an hour. Maybe that's me selling those bars so I could sell more, but to set up the booth, I don't have to be the one setting up the booth. I could buy back my time. So for that 1 hour of setting up a booth, you say, well, Mike, it's 1 hour. I could do it. Again, if you understand your value of time is $78, but you're doing a $15 hour task, That's the challenge. The challenge is the scarcity mindset of the business owner in this example that says, I could just do it myself. Of course, you could do it yourself, but if it's easy for you to do, then it's easy for you to delegate. And therefore, we need to delegate the things that are easy and only do the things that are in our genius. That's why you are worth more. That's why you're the business owner. So, Dan Martell, Buy Back Your Time, fantastic book. Highly recommend it. The first thing to delegate, he calls it the replacement ladder, is administrative. Number one is administrative. So everything from email management, calendar management, inboxes, social media, video editing, graphic design, even some just phone appointment setting that's not sales related, just confirmation calls, reminder calls, CRM management, managing your email list, any of these types of data entry, administrative type of tasks, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in fulfillment, doesn't matter. Just get that offloaded. Number one. Then number two, there's marketing and fulfillment. You might need somebody that is an expert. Those individuals that are been there, done that cost more money. Those that you're training to replicate yourself, well, they're going to not be as much money. You could get interns for this and train them up as an idea as you're building the scale. But the revenue driving parts of your business is sales and leadership. Leadership being strategy, working on the business, figuring out the next candy bars you want to develop. How can I find, strategic partnerships and affiliates that sell my candy bars for me? How can I get these candy bars into other industries, or is there another product I could develop that's not a candy bar, that's a higher ticket product that can generate more than $1 per bar? That's the leadership. So it's like we want to offload all the stuff that's in the business so we can work on the business, but sometimes we don't necessarily know what to work on. So that's why one of the gifts I would love to give any listener who has this question is I have a time audit workbook. It's 25 pages, 100% for free. Figure out what your time is worth. Number one. Number two, what are the lower value tasks? Figure that out. And then number three is in this workbook are all the high value activities. There's about 40 low value activities, about 40 high value activities. And for you to just do the audit, and then I'll pair that with a free 90-day delegation planning session with you. I'm personally doing these right now where I'll review that workbook with you. Again, 100% for free to figure out what we could get offloaded for you. I'm not doing them forever, but since I know this is airing soon, I'm getting a lot of energy, and it's also market research for me. And if someone wanted to take me up on that, betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. And I'd love to have that conversation and gift you that workbook. But again, lots of content to unpack. You ask me the questions, I'm going to answer them and give as much value as I can in the short period of time that we have.
I think the problem is if I needed to set up a booth, like you said, I could pay somebody $15 an hour. But me as an entrepreneur, I would think, well, I'm spending $15 an hour more than what I would normally spend, which is nothing because I can do it. But then if they decide to bite the bullet and do that, they probably don't end up seeing the ROI because they won't take advantage of that situation to do those higher value items at that time.
Yeah,
because I think my mindset's kind of like that, right? Like, why would I go out and pay somebody to edit these podcast episodes when I can just do it myself? Oh, but okay, this time I'm going to do it, but I have to teach them and I have to show them how to do it right. And then I'll probably just relax a little bit before I get involved in something because it takes me a while to get started because I have ADHD and all this stuff. It's actually just a waste of money. And they probably don't think about that. Where I think the growth mindset is saying, I'm going to free myself up to plan to sell, 500 more candy bars this quarter because that's my goal. What are the activities I can do to plan, say, a marketing strategy while somebody's setting up that booth? I think you need to be intentional about doing the planning for that ahead of time rather than biting the bullet, doing it and not having a plan in place to say, what are you going to do with that bought time, I guess is what you're doing.
That's what they're doing. They're buying their time. So it's not like I'm buying my time so I can make a sandwich. I'm buying my time so that way I can, if I'm that candy bar owner, I'm buying my time back. So while that person's setting up, I'm walking around to every other booth and trying to find, number one, what are other booths that I could set up in the area? Number two, are there any affiliates that I could partner with? And maybe I could sell their product and I could get a commission off of what they sell, and they could sell my product for me. Maybe there's an affiliate opportunity there. Maybe there's someone who's selling milk, and now we have I'll sell your milk that pairs with my chocolate bars and you do the same thing, right? Like that's the strategy part. So yeah, someone else is setting up the booth so I can buy back my time to do something that can generate more revenue and more opportunities for my business. The challenge is the business owner is not an owner with the mentality that you're sharing, Hank. They're an operator. They have a
Mhm.
job. They quit the 9 to 5 just to work 24/7. That's a mentality shift that they have to have. You're not a business owner just because you own a business. If you're constantly in reaction mode to your staff or to your clients, you now have a new boss. Your boss is your staff and your clients. You're not the owner. The business owns you. So we got to escape that hamster wheel of constantly working in the business. Buy back your time with, again, depending on the type of business, be very strategic with who are the who's that can do the tasks that are low value, the bottom 20%, install them into the business, delegate, and free me up to do the higher value tasks that only I can do that's in my genius. And this is why it's important for a chocolate maker in this example. If you like to make the chocolate bars, well, you probably shouldn't have started the business. You probably should go work for a chocolate manufacturer. Why? Because if you are the mechanic, you can't run the mechanic shop. If you're the baker, you can't run the bakery. Those are two different skills. The skill of making the chocolate bar and the skill of running the business are two different skills. Just because you're the one who can do the thing doesn't mean that's you. You need to find someone else to do the thing and step back and run the business until, and remove yourself as a cog in the machine, unless you want to stay being the cog in the machine forever. And then you're the bottleneck. And then you're always giving your time up for money. There's always going to be exchange. There's going to be consequences to that, consequences on your health, your relationships, or your purpose and your passion. And you're going to be like, oh, business is hard. It's not the business is hard. The approach that you're taking to business is hard.
Right. I think a good statement would be don't, like you said before, don't do something you like, but that you're passionate about. It comes down to your why. I want to sell chocolate bars so that I can become rich and not have to work long hours versus I have the best recipe for chocolate and I want everyone in the world to taste my chocolate bar. Those are different. If you use that second example, you'll end up saying, hey, I could show other people how to make my candy bars and I can go out and help spread the word throughout the world to sell my candy bars. I think that's what it comes down to, is having that mindset so that you can take yourself and remove yourself from the stirring the chocolate and tasting it and wrapping it to spreading the word and having other people, like you said, do that other work for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. You got to, if you're solving a problem in the marketplace, just let the business solve the problem. You are letting the business be its own entity. That's why I say the business is a vehicle. The business is not me, it's a vehicle. And that's an important part. If you have the business being under your name, well, I challenge that too. Make sure the name is not like Hank's Chocolate Bar, for example, because then, Hank is in charge of everything. I say that in kind of a joking way because I know it's that's why you can't sell your podcast. You got to sell your podcast to another guy named Hank, but that's
Right.
besides the point.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes that can work. Like, Hattie B's Hot Chicken, which I love, which is in Atlanta and
For
Nashville,
sure.
right? It's probably the name of the person, and then that becomes known. But I understand
Absolutely.
what you're saying. Sometimes if you use your name, it's like a personal namesake, and you feel responsible to do everything in the business.
Yeah.
One aspect of your 6 steps was using tools. Let's discuss some tools because I know everybody's all up in arms about AI and some want to use it and embracing it. Other people are scared to use that. Then there's the tried and true items like calendars and task management tools. What are some tools that you have found that help people buy back their time?
Sure. So the biggest one was the calendar management, like the scheduling tools. So here's the thing: when I was in my grind season, I had 3 different people that could get my attention. I had 1,000 clients who were buying Cutco kitchen knives for me. That's what I did for 20 years. So they all had my cell phone number. I had my recruits. I recruited over 5,000 people to sell over $19 million worth of product. So all the recruits that were trying to get a job, they had my direct point of contact. And then my current team that was selling the product line had my direct point of contact. So there were 3 different parties coming at me, all grabbing my attention. How do you recover from that? How can I created a business to set me up for constantly being in demand. So that's why a scheduling tool is the best one. Another one is a learning management software, like a video library for frequently asked questions. So I use Calendly for my scheduling tool. I use Thinkific for my learning management. So that way, if anybody did have a question, I could send them a link and it's like, hey, these are some frequently asked questions. Start here. And if that doesn't answer your question, then book a link for, to book a call. And then you could get to the point where it's somebody else can, answer those questions where it didn't have to be me. But these are a couple of learning management softwares were helpful. Google Sheets versus using my computer. I know it sounds weird, but I used to use Excel on my computer, but then I was the bottleneck. So when I moved to Google Sheets into the cloud, that means anybody else can access those files in real time, something super small, but I think it's important to be noted to keep everything in the cloud so others can have access in case they need. Same thing with like cloud phone numbers, like texting base or something like that. So there's a cloud-based phone number so somebody else can text or respond. That doesn't necessarily have to be me versus being bottlenecked to my iPhone. Um, and then of course AI. I mean, tons of tools out there like Opus Clips for finding shorts and reels inside of longer form content. And everything with ChatGPT is people know ChatGPT, but how it's used. We like to use the ChatGPT and the AI tone analyzer and the writing style. So that way, for our clients that use us, we figure out what their writing style is and their tone is for their emails, for their social media posting, commenting. So that way, everything that our virtual assistant team is doing for our clients is still in the client's tone. So we're pairing AI with humans. I think that's really, really a key component to using virtual assistants is pairing them with AI. These are just a couple of Spitfire ideas
Yeah.
of just some tools. And
And there's so many out there. There's hundreds
tons.
and different ones, free ones, paid ones, and going
Yeah.
back to using, Google Sheets. I love slides, and that was a game changer for me as a speaker. Is having people help me and work on my slides, and me being able to be there at the same time, adding notes and tweaking some things. That was the biggest game changer for me as a speaker. And then talking about, AI tools. A lot of people always talk about prompts, right? Okay, sure, yeah, you need to use, really robust prompts with a lot of instruction, but don't forget to add negative prompts like don't do this or don't use this information or this type of tone, etc. That actually helps too. That was something I learned quite recently, and it's helped me refine some things. My son actually had a homework assignment, and he wrote things out like really fragmented sentences and just like bullet items about the project he was working on, and I used Claude by Anthropic. Just I said, use only this information and create a biography for this person based on only this information. Write it as a seventh grader, just to give him the idea of how that should look like, so he can actually physically write it. And it was really awesome.
It's great. Yeah, tons of use cases for using GPT. All I would say is if anybody's concerned about like AI or they're like hesitant or whatnot, all I would say is just remember the old flip phone that was used for making a phone call, and then now having GPS on your phone as an example. It's just like what we used to have to do is have a map and stop at a gas station and like ask someone for help. All we did was make it easier. You still need to be a human asking for directions, but instead of stopping at a gas station asking for directions, you just have access to ask that question on your device, put it in the GPS, and boom, it spits it out in seconds. That's what AI and that's what GPT and all these tools are doing. They're just tools to do the same thing, just way more efficiently, faster, seamlessly. You still have to do your due diligence. You could still get lost with GPS, but it's really way freaking better than having to find a map and stop at a gas station. So just that context.
Yep. That's probably actually a really hard chore to do these days. Even number one, find a map in a gas station to buy it and then try to navigate that way.
Yeah.
It's amazing how people traveled back then.
Yeah, it's funny.
What other parts of your 6 steps should we talk about? Because I know we have a limited time together today, and we could probably sit here for a couple hours and talk about it.
I would say the team part because the 10-80-10 is really a critical piece of buy back your time as well from Dan Martell. That I do the first 10%, I offload the middle 80%, and then I do the final 10%. So if I'm a business owner, what I want to do is I want to start as many things as possible, then offload that middle 80% so that way I can start the next 10% of something else. I start at 10%, I offload the middle 80. I start at 10, offload the middle 80. And then when they're working on the middle 80, they're eventually going to come back to me with the final 10. So therefore, I'm only doing the first 10% and the final 10%, but I have a team constantly working on that middle 80%. So that's an easy way to get a lot done in an effective, efficient way. Right now, at this moment, while I'm chatting with you, Hank, I have about 12 or 13 Mike Abramowitzes out there working for me as me, just not by me. One person organizing a spreadsheet of all the podcasts to get me on, and another person emailing those hosts to get me on those shows. I have someone else managing my Facebook inbox, prospecting on Facebook, someone else on LinkedIn, prospecting on LinkedIn, someone else on Instagram, prospecting on Instagram, someone else chopping up my podcast, producing it for me, someone else taking those podcast episodes, chopping up into clips, and then someone else taking the transcription, creating captions and hashtags and optimizing them, then someone else repurposing that information for social media posts and creating a social media content calendar, someone else managing my email inbox and responding and booking appointments for me. All of that is taking place while another person is creating graphic design images for me, thumbnails and whatnot. I mean, while I'm talking to you literally right now at 9:30 a.m. on a Friday, there's 12 or 13 Mike Abramowitzes all working for me, as me, just not by me. And that is why an effective team is really, really important, to surround yourself with people that I can train. They're doing the 80%, but I offloaded that first 10%, and then they'll send me a Slack message if they have questions for the final 10% that they need support with. That's proper delegation. And in my opinion, I can't imagine running a business without something like that in place for all the different departments.
That's awesome. It's like I always say, I wish I can clone myself, and you found a way to do that. And you just the way, by the way, you said that you have 10 of you out there. So if you can get what was that rule? If somebody can do something 80% as good as you, it's good enough, right? I think I forgot who said that
Yeah, Dan
initially.
Martell said
Did
80%
he?
done by someone else is 100% awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, if you can, that was a great example of like the how to do that, and why it's important to buy back your time, because what that's doing is it's getting you more business. And I love how you said that you have folks that are doing social media mining, right? They're going out and probably going into people's DMs, commenting on people, like, and not saying like, check out my website, and put a link, but like actually engaging with people and getting into the conversation, because then they'll be like, well, who is this person? And then they go back to your bio, they go back to your
It's in my
website
tone, so
to
they're
learn
using
about
my
you.
AI, so it
Yeah.
sounds like me. How would Mike comment on this in under 160 characters in his writing style and his tone, right? Like, it's really cool what you can do just thinking and imagining differently. If we are in that scarcity play that no one could do it as good as me, it's not true. It's not true. We just got to think differently. Business is a game. It's predictable. This is not like foreign. I don't care what you're doing in business. Someone else has done what you want to do, because it's all. I don't care. The product might be different. The service might be different. The offer might be different. But the strategies, it's not. It's not. Everything's predictable.
Yep, they changed, but somebody's doing them, right? Some people still might be doing stuff old school by like writing stuff down and not even using Excel, right? They might be doing hand-drawn tables, right? But it's still the same as using a Google Sheet in a way. But planning and inventory stuff like that is the same. If I like if I'm that chocolate maker, now what I need to do is say, hey, I need to start some things, develop like the what I want to do, the plan, hand that off to somebody, and then go back and either check on it or finish it. The first part of that is probably a little bit harder, the 10% in the beginning, right? Because the 10% at the end, you're probably just doing quality control checks, or actually pushing a button and doing the thing or whatever it is. But that first 10 is probably the hardest for anybody. Saying, what do I need to do to prepare somebody to do the 80%? And I think there's so much great
That's why
information in this
coaching is so
episode.
important. That's why
Yeah.
coaching is so important. I invest 10% of my annual earnings. I've done that for over a decade. And when I had no money, when I was broke, negative $130,000 in debt with a 400 credit score, we didn't get into that part of the story in my 20s.
Wow.
I had no money to invest in personal growth. So I went to the library and got free books and resources that I would feed my mind with. So I was always investing into my self-development as a business person, as a human, as a leader. And now I have business coaches, I have health coaches, I have a somatic breath coach. I'm a part of communities like Front Row Dads, which is the awesome brotherhood for family men with businesses, not businessmen with families, and just like surrounding myself around really good people to help me with that first 10% on everything that I want to do in my life. So it's really important. Surround yourself with the right people, invest in your business growth, invest in yourself, and surround yourself with who's that can help you offload some of the things that are below your target per hour wage, and make sure that there's tools available to them so they could work effectively and have a great user experience.
I think anybody listening to this episode needs to be like Mike, right? Because I think you just explained how you went from being in debt and probably could have took a lot more worse than wrong turns to being very successful, buying back your time, spending time with your family, and also, having a thriving business that you have people helping you on, and whoever works for you probably really loves working with you. So with that, let's talk about how people can connect with you, work with you if you want to. Obviously, in the show notes, I'll have links to the website and the workbook as well. But how can people connect with you and learn more from you?
Well, I appreciate that, Hank. And for the record, it doesn't, I mentioned the seasons, doesn't matter where you're at right now. You're right where you're supposed to be. Every season is a really positive and powerful season. So just keep that in mind. But if you wanted to stay in touch, betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. That's directly to me. There's not many opportunities to get directly to me, but that is directly to me. And I'm just having a blast having these conversations with these business owners, helping them buy back their time and figure out what those low value tasks are. So that way they can get started on that 10% of offloading those middle 80%. So betterthanrich.com/90-day plan. Hook you up with the workbook, hook you up with a 30 to 40-minute session with me. I would love, it would be an honor. It would be an honor to do that for anybody that could use that right now. We mainly work with high earning business owners. Those are the individuals who want to have time freedom for their family. So if somebody's listening to this and say, well, I'm a high earning business owner, I have a family, I'm just feel like I'm stuck in the business constantly. I really want to escape my business and I need some help buying that time back. We do have virtual assistant services, and it's an account manager model where someone can put in the request. We have a team of 30 to 40 specialists that specialize in that bottom 20%. So that way somebody can have a team of 10 or 12 people working for them, but they only have one account manager. So it's like, all right, account manager, I need all these things done that Mike said on that episode. Perfect. Put in the request, and it's on a monthly subscription model based on how many hours they need. And we have about 65 to 70 clients that we do this for right now, and it's been really, really helpful for the marketplace. And we probably could take on it's March 1st. We probably could add on another 5 or 6 this month if somebody's listening and you say, man, that could really be helpful for us. We'd love to have that conversation for sure. You could let me know on that delegation plan.
Awesome. My question for you: do you use email marketing?
Um, it's not my department, but yes is the answer. But we have someone else on the team that does some email, but not much cold. Everything we've built in our company is warm and organic right now. We didn't get into it, but we started the company in 2021 when my son was born at 1 pound 4 ounces, and we were in the hospital with him for 8.5 months. And my wife had to leave her corporate job to become a full-time medical mom. So my business coach at the time, who helped me systemize my direct sales business, I called him. I said, I earned 6 figures in profits while we were in the hospital in the 8.5 months. Do you think we could teach other business owners to buy back their time like I did, where my business can produce money when I'm not there? And he said, let's find out. So that's the birthplace of Better Than Rich. We created a partnership. So my coach became my business partner. And now we've helped hundreds of other business owners do what I've been able to do, not with the same circumstances to be away from the business for 8.5 months, but to be able to take their kid to soccer practice and not have to worry about it, or take that family trip without guilt or distraction. So it's crazy on the other end of circumstances what the human potential is possible of being able to create.
Awesome. Well, I asked you that because for a long time, almost 20 years now, I've been saying every company out there should be using email marketing. And that was when I was working with iContact. I'm now working with Kickbox, which is an email verification service. In other words, okay, you need to be using email marketing, but make sure that you have valid email addresses. And if you want to make sure your emails get into the inbox, Kickbox also offers deliverability consulting, and they're a supporter of the show. And I've been mentioning them in the last few episodes because they do support the show. And I just wanted to make sure people know not only do you need to use email marketing, but make sure you're using valid email addresses, whether it's uploading a list or using the real-time API. If you're a larger organization and you have thousands of emails to check every day. With that, Mike, I appreciate you being on the show today. Hopefully, everybody can learn how to buy back some of their time as well as spend more time doing what they want to do, whether it's being with their family, or maybe you don't have a large family, you just want to go on more vacations. I think you laid out the blueprint pretty well. You have the free workbook that I hope people will take advantage of. But I don't think this is the first time I'll see you on this show, and I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Hank. Appreciate it, man.